My life has been blessed beyond measure, and I do know that one can only come this far by faith.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson made history today when President Biden made it official by announcing her nomination for the U.S. Supreme Court. Jackson is the first Black woman ever nominated to sit on the nation's highest court. Good evening. This is Making the Case. I'm Yodit Tewolde. Tonight, we're dedicating the entire hour to this historic day and talk about its significance, the confirmation hearing, and how Judge Jackson could influence the ideological makeup of the court. First, here are a few of Judge Jackson's career highlights. She's a Harvard Law graduate. She currently sits on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Judge Jackson is a former public defender and served as vice chair of the Sentencing Commission. And she once clerked for outgoing Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, whom she would replace if confirmed. Here to discuss the historical significance of this moment with these three brilliant voices, veteran prosecutor and BNC legal contributor Paul Henderson, trial attorney and crisis manager Monique Pressley, and attorney and immediate past president of the National Bar Association, CK Hoffler. I love to have conversations with you, especially on this day, on such a historical moment. We know that, at least for me, this is one of those rare days where I'll remember where I was and what I was doing when it was made official that a Black woman was nominated to the Supreme Court. So I just want reaction to President Biden's pick. CK, to you first.
Well, good evening. It was, my reaction was where I was able to exhale. That's probably the best way to describe it. The appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court, or the nomination at this point, and I'm claiming her victory that she's going to be confirmed without a question, is so historic on so many levels. Her background, immaculate. Her training, superior. Her all that she brings to the table is something new that, quite frankly, we have not seen on the U.S. Supreme Court since the late, great Thurgood Marshall. She's coming at a time in our history, and by the way, it's about time that a Black woman was nominated to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, but she's coming at a time in our history where we desperately need diversity of views, of perspectives, and of, quite frankly, approach on the U.S. Supreme Court. She's going to be a great leader. She's going to bring a certain flavor that many of us can identify with, and she's going to be phenomenal. And this is what we need at this time in our history. So I say kudos and bravo to the president for taking the step, for living out the promise that he made when he was campaigning, and for enabling history to be made with this extraordinary woman who is going to make a difference for decades to come.
Y'all, my pup Miles definitely has an opinion, as you probably hear him barking right now. So please ignore him. Monique, I want to get your thoughts.
It's overwhelming. It's wonderful. I'm full of wonder about the fact that we actually got here. I'm thankful to the president, as CK, as Madam President herself just said. I'm thankful that he kept his promise. Black women are owed this and more. And so this is a start. And I really am excited for soon to be Justice Jackson. She has handled her career immaculately, and she has lived an extraordinarily blessed life to this point, as she said so herself. So I'm just glad that I'm able to be here to witness it. And I am confident that she is ready for any and every challenge that she will face in this confirmation process and then beyond when she's actually on the court.
Paul, your first reaction when you learned that Judge Jackson was the nominee?
You know, I felt both validated and I felt excited. And to me, the moment that I'm going to remember is when Biden was sitting there and introducing her. To see that image of him being flanked by, to his left, Kamala Harris, and to his right, Judge Jackson was like, here we come. He is announcing the victory. He is announcing the potential. He is announcing new leadership. And once again, we have a Black woman coming to save this country, the court, fill in the blank. But I clapped for it, and I was personally excited by what her leadership means to me. It feels like a validation of being seen, that the images that we see of the Supreme Court, that we've all seen, we will be able to look at it differently because of her presence. And her presence will echo experiences that we all have shared. And by all, I mean intentionally and specifically communities of color that share in her background and her shared experiences in this country, in the legal profession, and on the bench are all uplifted by what she brings to this courtroom and what she brings to leadership now, because there's so many important things that are in the future. And I'm just excited that the voice in the room, that the voice writing the decisions, that the voice arguing on behalf of this country is now, that definition is broader. It's reflective of a community that I'm familiar with. It's reflective of experiences that I've lived. It means more to more people, and a door has been opened that hopefully will never be closed again, about her representation and leadership in the Supreme Court. It was all of that in those moments, just in hearing her name and seeing her face and hearing her story. Everything felt validated to me personally. That's what I felt. That was the moment.
Well, let's take a listen to President Biden from earlier today describing the significance of this moment.
During this process, we look for someone who, like Justice Breyer, has a pragmatic understanding that the law must work for the American people. Someone who has historical perspective to understand that the Constitution is a resilient charter of liberty. Someone with the wisdom to appreciate that the Constitution protects certain inalienable rights, rights that fall within the most fundamental personal freedoms that our society recognizes. In the end, someone with extraordinary character will bring to the Supreme Court an independent mind, uncompromising integrity, and with a strong moral compass and the courage to stand up for what she thinks is right. For too long, our government, our courts, haven't looked like America. And I believe it's time that we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation, with a nominee of extraordinary qualifications.
CK, this isn't just an important moment for Black America, but America as a whole, right? And for those who may not understand why or care, please expound.
Well, certainly, Yodit. I mean, when we have a more diverse court, a more diverse U.S. Supreme Court, that will impact every single major decision that affects our communities and our society, whether you're Black or white. And so it's vitally important to have difference of opinions, difference of backgrounds, difference of experiences, and that's what she brings to the table. Indeed, Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be a strong leader on the U.S. Supreme Court, and we all should want to have that because this is the highest court of the land, and we can't afford to have it sway too much on one side or the other. She will be a leveraging factor, if you will, and she will balance out this court in a way that's very significant for decades to come. So this is a great moment in history.
CK, Monique, and Paul, please stand by. We've got more on Judge Jackson's historic nomination to the Supreme Court when Making the Case returns. We're talking about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's historic nomination for the U.S. Supreme Court. The Harvard Law grad currently serves as a judge on the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. If confirmed, Judge Jackson will be our nation's first ever Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. Still with me are my panel of experts, veteran prosecutor and BNC legal contributor Paul Henderson, trial attorney and crisis manager Monique Pressley, and attorney and immediate past president of the National Bar Association, CK Hoffler. Monique, those who've criticized Biden's nomination of Judge Jackson are clearly misinformed, or it's politically rooted, right? Because she's Qualified, experienced, and ready, as you stated before. And in fact, more experience than the last 3 Trump appointees combined, including the Chief Justice himself, John Roberts. But what excites me the most, and I said this to you earlier today, isn't that Judge Jackson has the traditional qualifications that usually come with Supreme Court nominees. It's her non-traditional experience, that she was in the trenches as a former federal public defender. No one has that defense experience since the great Thurgood Marshall. So talk to us about why professional diversity on the bench is so critical.
Everything that the Supreme Court is deciding is related to very real human experiences in the United States of America. And it makes a difference when the person who is making those decisions has lived experiences that are actually touching the people about whom they're making the decision. So making decisions about criminal justice, whether it's reform or whether it's strengthening it, deciding on matters that relate to voting, deciding on matters that relate to a woman's body, having these matters decided by someone who has been in those roles on the ground where it matters, it's everything. It's not just an image of diversity. It is diversity of lived experience that you bring to bear when you're on the court. And I think that has always been essential, and it has always been lacking. And that's why we've had some of the decisions that we've had, because people are on the court making decisions about things that do not touch the parts of their lives, their immediate families, their friends, their communities. They haven't seen it up close and personal. This will be different.
Well, speaking of lived experiences, CK, you're a Black woman, a lawyer, a mother, whose lived experiences more than likely mirror those of Judge Jackson. So why is bringing that background to the Supreme Court or the bench in general important?
Well, it's important because that means it will be seen. That Black women, that Black people, that people who are Black and brown, who are mothers, who have the myriad of experiences that we have, will be seen, will be heard, because oftentimes we're not seen and heard. Plus, one thing that we do know, and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is proof positive of this, we have to be exceptionally qualified on all levels to be able to compete and to be able to rise and be elevated to this point. She has done that successfully every stage of her career, every stage of her personal life. So this is someone who is a fighter, because to be a Black woman and to be a Black woman lawyer means, and to be successful, that you are a fighter almost by definition. You know, Yodit, if I could just take a moment to just share with you, I'm here in Florida right now, about 100 miles from where Judge Brown Jackson grew up. And ironically, we're installing a new Black Women's Lawyer Association called the Palm Beach Cherie Davis Cunningham Black Women's Association. And it is precisely these types of associations that nurture, that are so critical for us to be able to breathe and to live, because of the magnitude of discrimination that we experience day in and day out because of our gender, because of our race. So for her to get to this point, for her to be on point, to be such a leader, to be so incredible, and to have the appropriate judicial temperament and experience is magnificent, because we know that she is overly qualified and could certainly, and I say this objectively, run circles in terms of her experience around many of the justices that have served on the U.S. Supreme Court or that are currently serving. So again, hail to our chief for making this decision, because as a Black woman, this is a new day. And I say for generations of Black and brown kids, for Black and brown women, for people in the world to see this is historic and important.
Paul, Judge Jackson, she left a cushy gig in private practice to spend 2 years working as a staffer on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. Now, she realized, though, that she lacked a practical understanding of the actual workings of the federal criminal legal system. So that's when she became a public defender. Then she came back to the commission years later when she was nominated as vice chair and retroactively reduced sentences for crack cocaine offenses and cut sentences for most federal drug offenders. Why does this matter in a future Supreme Court justice?
Well, it matters because she comes to that table with a history of advocacy that was intentional about addressing race disparities in the law. And that is huge. There are, just as we were talking about earlier, there are so few folks that get the opportunity to advocate in that way. You know, I personally feel like trial lawyering, that's the highest level of lawyering that there is. And the fact that she has had a job where she was paid to advocate for the most indigent, where she was paid to represent the most race disparate affected in communities of color, means that she is bringing that personal experience to the table, which elevates her sense of understanding on how she will read and interpret the law. It actually matters that she has translated those experiences into specific advocacy that can be measured. That sentencing disparity is a huge issue that, by the way, is still looming right now in front of the Supreme Court because it has not been fixed. It has not been adjudicated. The fact that she is coming into that room where decisions will be made with the history of having addressed, again with intentionality, those race disparate outcomes on sentencing at a federal level are some of the highest levels of race disparate outcomes that exist in our legal system. The narcotics differentiation is more than 10 times what it should be, affected specifically by race. And this is a woman that is coming to this court with experiencing, calling it out, addressing it, advocating to change it, and coming with a measurement of success already before we begin to unpack all of the other issues that are of race consequence to the broader definition of this country, to the broader population of the United States. And that's why all of this matters. That's why her background matters. The fact that we have not had someone with experience doing public defender work, federal, state, or local, doesn't matter, that we haven't had someone at this level doing that work in over 3 decades is groundbreaking. And the fact that it comes in a package from a person of color and a woman it really is groundbreaking. It's phenomenal. And it's inspiring about what is to come. The foreshadowing and the expectation that is built upon this nomination and confirmation is astounding to me because exactly of that experience that she brings to the table already.
Monique, we've heard the saying, if you can see it, you can be it, right? And this can be more applicable than with this nomination. And at one point when Judge Jackson wanted to apply to Harvard, she was told by a counselor not to set her sights so high. What does this nomination mean for our next generation of women lawyers, judges, those who may have never considered going into the legal field?
It's everything. It's everything. As I was saying to you earlier today, I have teen children. They will never know what it is to not have a Black president of the United States. They'll never know what it is to not have a Black and woman vice president of the United States. And now it's a part of their experience that there is a Black woman on the Supreme Court. And to have them have eliminated from their "it won't happen" these things, to be able to live long enough to see that is a blessing, not just for the ones who are coming along, but for those of us who are already further down the road, because it makes it rewarding to know that the fighting in the trenches, the insisting upon the civil rights and freedoms, this nomination today is on the shoulders, on the backs of hundreds of thousands of us who fought and did not get this opportunity so that she can rise today. And so that's worth everything.
All right, guys, we've still got a lot more to unpack with my 3 co-counsels for the night. We'll take an even closer look at Judge Jackson's background next.